Dear friends, greetings. Welcome back to yet another Coach Excellence coaching conversation. And today we have a seasoned coach all the way from Pune, India. We have Coach Jayshree Kirtane. I hope I spelled the name right. Hi, Jayshree.
Hi, Kiran. Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
It's our pleasure to have you on this episode. And for the benefit of audience, I will share a little that I know about Jayshree before requesting her to share more about herself before we jump into the conversation. And from what I got to know about Jayshree, she is a MCC, so that doesn't come easy. So let's all pay attention to what she says. And she is associated with ICF. She is a speaker, writer, and an eternal optimist. That's a pleasant word even to hear. Her life motto is 18 till I die. So audience, please take note. And she values freedom, fairness, and above all, love. So with that, I would request Jayshree to take the stage and share a little about herself before we start with the conversation. Over to you, Jayshree.
Thanks, Kiran, for that lovely introduction. Okay, a little bit about myself. I'm a postgraduate in mathematical economics, and used my left brain for the first 10 years of my career. Only left brain. Never knew that something like a right brain or even heart exists. And actually, it is a coaching meeting that changed my perspective towards life. So that coach in that coaching meeting, in fact, asked a very powerful question, and that made me think about what else could I do. And that's when I showed the courage and took the leap, changed my profession completely. So I used to be a professor in management schools. So from there, teaching quantitative subjects to applied psychology. That's the leap of faith that I took. And that happened 18 years ago.
Wow.
Once I took that faith, then I was on a spree of acquiring certifications in various psychometric instruments. So I can safely call myself an applied psychologist. And then coaching, I think, just happened. I think coaching chose me rather than me choosing coaching. So that's how I came to professional coaching about 8 years ago. And I'm loving every moment of it.
Wow. Few things definitely. I generally don't summarize when introduction happens, but I'm compelled to. Someone from all the way from mathematics and a powerful question. And we have a coach and a psychologist here. How fabulous it is. And it's amazing to see how coaching accepts people from all walks of life. Every episode I hear people coming from extremely, completely unbelievable walks of life or work experience and becomes a coach. So great to hear that. So with that, let's jump into the conversation. I got to hear that Jayshree has done in excess of 3,500 hours of coaching. That's a lot. And having completed these many hours of coaching, what is coaching to you today?
Great question. And makes me ponder over that, because something that has become like a part of you, and when you are asked to define that, it becomes rather difficult, isn't it? But anyway, let me try. So to me, coaching is a very special, magical space where both the poles of different dichotomies come together beautifully, right? So for example, words and silence, acceptance and challenge, creativity and structure, right? So all these seemingly, bipolar dichotomies, they come together and dance in the moment. That's the space of coaching for me. If I were to put it in just one sentence, for me, coaching is love in a framework.
That's amazing. I think very unique way you mentioned how unvalidated, I think, it being a magical space, and the word dichotomy per se not a very good at English. So I took a moment to understand what dichotomy is. And then you narrated how words and silence both happen in a coaching conversation. I think none of the coaches or coaches are strangers to the very powerful space that gets created between words and silence. And also you pretty nicely captured the words creativity and structure. both extremes. And obviously, love in a framework is something that will live on thinking for a long time. So thanks a lot for that very unique and an interesting way of sharing what coaching is today for you. With that, let's move to the next one. Often discussed this question among in leaderships in organizations as who benefits from having a coach, because they end up have to invest. There's this a lot, probably sometimes a forever never-ending conversation around who actually benefits from having your perspective.
I'm sure you must have asked this question to many coaches, and I'm also sure that you have received the same answer again and again. Everybody benefits from having a coach. Everybody benefits from having a coach, and I would go even one step further in saying everybody benefits from coaching, right? So it doesn't always have to be a structured coaching engagement, but a coaching conversation is beneficial to everybody. Now, having said that, if I were to say something from my own experience, it has just so happened that in last so many years, I don't know. I mean, I think the clients choose the coach. So it's not about me deciding whom to coach, but the clients deciding whom they would get coached by. So I have ended up coaching a lot of C-suite executives and a C-1 level executives in large corporates across different parts of the world. What I have noticed is, however cliched might it sound, it is lonely at the top, right? So these executives are looking for a friend, a confidant, somebody whom they can just bounce off their thoughts to. They're actually looking for a clean mirror, which is not available because of just the position that they hold in their organization. They, I think, are looking for a safe space to be vulnerable and to know that they will not be taken advantage of if they are vulnerable in that space. They are also looking for someone who will hold them accountable, but gently. They are, as it is, driven by too many Excel sheets, right? So they do want, obviously they do want results because they're all outcome focused, and that is why they are where they are. But what they want is a little gentleness, a little kindness, a little compassion in holding them accountable. So, and all this I am saying not because I feel that way. I think I'm saying all this because this is what my clients have come and told me. This is what, because I truly asked them this question. So, what is the benefit of having this coaching engagement? What is it that you received from this assignment? And this is exactly what they have come back and said. So I guess that's true.
Just to even pick up the keywords that you mentioned, how the ones on top find it very difficult to find whom to speak to. It's so true. Yeah. And creating that safe space for them where they can be vulnerable, which is an thing to do, and truly a good thing to happen to, and a good thing to be practiced. And then they always are held accountable. So if there is someone who can be gentle upon them while they trying their best to be accountable for their actions and progress. And last but not the least, you mentioned a clean mirror. Clean mirror can do wonders, which in physicality we know. And when you can actually see much more, everything else that can be seen not on a physical mirror, but in a conversation like coaching, I think can be immensely beneficial for everyone. So thanks a lot for that thoughts on this aspect. Now let's move on to something very interesting and exciting, and this is around myths. You name it, everything you name or point to and have a myth around it. Same is the case with coaching. So what would be one myth around coaching that you would like to burst today for the benefit of our audience?
So there are two myths that I want to bust. So one is asking questions means coaching, or coaching means asking questions. In fact, some of my clients even make fun of me saying, oh, people make money by just asking questions. But I mean, that apart, that fun apart, they have that right. I think asking questions is not enough. What questions do you ask? At what time do you ask? And what is your intention for asking that question? I think those are the things that qualify for a question to be a coaching question. So just asking question doesn't mean donning a coaching hat. I think that's the myth that I want to bust, because these days so much is being talked about, the coaching style of leadership, coaching as a modality, that leaders should be compassionate. I think most of the leaders in corporate world today cognitively know what is good to be a good leader. What is it to be a good leader? I think they all cognitively know. And therefore, they also try to practice it by just mirroring the habits, the actions, so to say. And maybe people think that they're doing coaching. And it is not just leaders. I think even coaches think that they're doing coaching if they are asking questions. So I think that question needs to be qualified before it is called a coaching question. So that's a myth. And those, let me also tell you, there are a lot of people who are becoming or who have become coaches, but have had a past of being a trainer. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with it. I have been a trainer myself for a few years, right? So when people come in from that space, that this needs to be even, they need to be even more careful about this, because trainers have a habit of asking a question for which they already know an answer. Whereas coaches ask a question for which genuinely they don't know an answer. So I think that's one thing about coaching that I might want to mention here. I think the second myth, and that is my pet belief, but the second myth is coaching happens only in structured engagements and in scheduled calls. I believe recognizing coaching moments, acknowledging those coaching moments, and leveraging those to do micro coaching in those moments is possible all the time. So one doesn't, when one sees that moment, whether one has a title as a coach or not, but when one sees that moment, seizing that moment and having a coaching conversation in that moment is always possible for everybody. So you don't need to think whether am I a coach? Has this person really signed up, as my coachee? And is this the coaching hour that is figuring as the coaching hour on my calendar? So that's another myth. And in fact, one of the things that I am noticing many coaches are doing, and I do sometimes do that too, is that when we are coaching busy executives, the meetings will happen once every 3 weeks or once every 4 weeks. Right? Once the travel resumes, it will come back to that kind of frequency. When the meetings happen at that frequency, people do have coaching need in between the meetings. And a lot of micro coaching is happening even on WhatsApp communication. So that's a possibility. ICF will not recognize that as your coaching hours. But it is coaching nevertheless.
I think at the risk of being zipped by ICF, coaching can happen 24/7. It can happen at any time in the midst of any conversation too. So it's up to us to see what to acknowledge or what not to. But I think still coaching probably is larger than any organization or institution per se, because ICF loves to see it as associated as I can say, front driver of coaching in its best form. But as you had a pertinent point, that coaching can happen anytime, and sometimes without the title or a designation of coach. I think mothers in pockets often can be great coaches to their children. Now, which certification have they done? And at times, your friends, colleagues can also end up in a normal conversation, leaving you in a space of coaching, because you have that inclination of being a coachee. I believe you pick up that conversation piece and continue to reflect even after that, to see what it means to you, where I think and subconsciously coaching is happening. So very interesting. I think you named it as a micro moments or a micro coaching. So a new space to explore. And apart from that,
before you ask, Sorry.
Please
In
go ahead.
fact, before you ask the next question, I must tell you, you mentioned mothers being coaches to their kids. In fact, I became a coach to my mother during the entire lockdown period, and the I would say the outcome of that coaching engagement is this book which she wrote,
Wow.
which just got published a couple of
Amazing.
months ago.
That's
So,
fabulous. I will leave a
age no
link as
bar.
well for that. Now, see how powerful. I think it itself proves two things I would like to point back, because being a coach, probably I started reflecting through the conversation. You mentioned about a powerful question in the beginning. What actually started your journey? And now you shared a proof of a powerful coaching conversation, a book which came out. It does. I'm sure it's not. It didn't appear overnight. It happened through a lot of thinking, decision making, sitting, and writing. The foundation of which was a coaching conversation. Amazing to see, and think kudos for that. So, and apart from that, the first one you mentioned also left me in the curious was that questions mean coaching, coaching means questioning. Nah, I think often they say that conversation leaves them with those moments, breakthrough moments or incremental moments. It's up to the coachee, and it's left to the conversation. And also, you pointed to with pertinent points. What are we asking? And the timing, I think, which is very critical, paired with the context, which I can sense, and then the intention of asking that question, where I think the trainer, you pointed out how the intention is something, whereas a coach, the intention is something else. So I think two fabulous myths that you left us with to think further. Thanks a lot for that. So with that, let's move to the next one. While taking care of confidentiality, can you share one of your coaching memory? I'm sure there are plenty. One that stood out for you and that would be beneficial to our audience.
Yes, actually, yes, there are many, and I'm just trying to pick one. Okay, so let me pick this one, which is actually from a group coaching conversation, not from an individual coaching conversation. So I actually was, I was working on this assignment for a charitable hospital in Maharashtra, and I was working with everybody. So individual coaching was made available to the medical director and the other doctors, whereas group coaching was made available to almost everybody in the hierarchy. So in one of the group coaching sessions, there was one particular woman whose job was to sit at the front desk and greet the patients who came in and so on. She was grumbling, when the session began. She was grumbling and she was saying, "Oh, all these people," and it's a small thing, but it was important for her, because she said, "See, everybody gets to wear nice clothes to the workplace, but because I sit at the reception, I have to wear a uniform sari." Right? So what's the point? I mean, even if I buy anything, I just all 6 days, all my working hours, I just come to the workplace with the same clothes, and I get bored of that. So she grumbled and grumbled, and we of course worked through many other, not just this, but different questions and issues across hierarchy. And they worked, of course, towards the common goal of making affordable eye care possible for everybody, which was the chairman's dream. In the end, why I'm still remembering it, though it happened, I think, 5 years ago, is that in the end, she said, uh, you know, you will all remember that I was grumbling in the beginning, but now I have got the context for what I do. And that context has dissolved all my, grumpiness. So I still cherish that as a powerful moment, as to when people look at just themselves and just their job in isolation, it doesn't create that kind of joy. Right? But when they see it as a part of a larger vision, larger dream, larger context, and what it is serving, what purpose is it serving? When they see that, then it creates joy in the same thing. So her life didn't change. She still has to wear the uniform, right? But what changed was her attitude towards what she is doing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how again the word context come back as a very powerful thing. And I think also probably there was a good amount of awareness about her role in the big picture, not her role probably at the desk where she sits. And the same person. I think what was standing out for me is it's the same person who was grumbling to the same person who is now perfectly fine with having to wear the uniform. So I think it's how they say react, respond, and to the circumstances make such a big difference. And I think the conversation definitely helped her to come to that point and appreciate her role, her identity, and her comfort with what she was wearing. Great. Thanks a lot for, yeah, please, you're sharing something.
No, and in other words, it is also an answer to your earlier question, who benefits from coaching? So it's not just the person who's sitting on top of the hierarchy in the organization that benefits from the coaching, but it is a person who's right there at the front line also benefits from coaching.
And as a hospitality professional, I can vouch for it. Her impact on the individuals walking in for care can be phenomenal, because often she is the first touch point. We call it in practice, the first touch point, and that interaction can set a stage for everything that happens after. So her role, truly be said, is very, very critical and powerful for all those who visit the hospital. Thanks a lot for that. So with that, let's move to the next one. Now that after 3,500 hours, if you were to name the hardest part of your journey as a coach, what would that
be? Right. Oh, cool. Thank you for asking this question and allowing me to be vulnerable in this space, right? So the hardest part of my journey, and especially my journey towards becoming the MCC, was feeling and demonstrating genuine curiosity. Right? Now that became the hardest part because of my two biggest strengths. Right? So that's ironical, isn't it? So one strength that I have is my solid foundation experience, expertise in psychometric assessments. So typically, within first few minutes of interacting with anybody, and I would often take pride in saying this, within few minutes of interacting with anybody, I am able to place that person, let's say in a strengths profile or in a Myers-Briggs, or to judge what could be the, the 5OB related strengths and so on. Now that assessment strength became an impediment to me being truly and genuinely curious in the coaching conversations. So I had to work very, very rigorously on that. I still value my expertise in assessments, but I needed to traverse this journey to know what is the space for assessments, and it honor that space and then still be curious about the client who's bigger than what the assessment is showing. Right. So that's my one strength. The second strength that I have, and a lot of people have observed, is my strength of pattern making. So I see points that seem disparate to many people, but I'm able to quickly gauge the pattern across those points. Right. Now that became again an impediment to my pure curiosity, because I was doing all the work for the client. Right. So instead of the client recognizing the pattern, I was recognizing the pattern and placing it before the client. So one is I was working too hard and I was not making the client work hard. Second is my understanding that, okay, this is a pattern that I have recognized, but the client may recognize a completely different pattern, or client may not see any pattern at all in those points still remain disparate points for the client. And I need to honor that. Right? I need to honor that. So these two of my biggest strengths, I became hurdles in me being curious as a coach. And I guess I must have done something. If my recordings passed, then that means I've done something.
So interesting to see how strengths played against you in your identity as a coach. And I think I can sense how challenging it would have been, because these are pretty strong ones, psychometry as well as pattern making, and to box them out of the coaching conversation wouldn't be an easy task for anyone. So amazing to hear that hardest part of your coach journey. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Let's try to see something that we covered a while ago from the other side. We discussed about who can benefit from a coaching conversation and having a coach. Now, let's look at the other side. Who can become a coach?
Great. Who can become a coach? If you ask me, I think anybody can become a coach. Mm-hmm. That's a question. I don't really see any barriers to becoming a coach. The only thing, and the one that I started with, right? I said coaching is love in a framework. I think that's the important thing that we need to really keep in mind. And as human beings, I'm not saying exclusively as coaches, but when we do that as human beings, I think we become coaches as well. So my strong belief is that love and fear are the only two primary emotions. Mm-hmm. They are the only two primary emotions. They are the only two primary motivators. So all the constructive feelings, if I may use that word, such as joy, pleasure, compassion, care, sensitivity, all that, or even contentment comes from the place of love. Whereas all the not so constructive feelings, such as fear, anger, resentment, anxiety, jealousy, all of that comes from the space of fear. Right. So, and the interesting thing about this is it is either or. It is mutually exclusive. So, if you are operating from a space of love, you have nothing to be scared of. And if you are operating from a space of fear, then you are certainly not loving. Right. So, I think anybody who wants to be a coach or to become a coach just needs to know which is the space, which is my location, which is the location from which I am operating from. And whenever at any point in time, when I'm operating from a space of fear, even wanting to be a good coach is coming from a space of fear, right? So whenever I'm coming from a space of fear, then I'm not being a coach. Forget about being a good coach. I don't think there is anything like a bad coach. So then I'm not being a coach. But if I am operating from a space of love, then perhaps I am going closer to the coaching space.
Fabulous. So thanks a lot for that perspective again, which would leave many pause and think. So that let's, I'm sure while watching, they would do that. So that let's move to the, with that we come to the end of the questions. However, there is one bonus question which you need to support us with, and those who want to become a coach. Because today, if you look around, there are several coaching programs offering the possibility of becoming a coach in their own right. And I'm sure the ones who are considering coaching as a profession are spoiled for choice. But yes, there's a lot that goes into becoming a coach. So considering those aspects, what would your one advice be for the wannabe coaches?
When you ask for advice, I feel I have become like a big banyan tree. Okay, so if a single line advice is to be given, I think don't try to be a coach, just be a coach. I think that would be my advice. But the other one, because a lot of people reach out to me asking for this advice, I'm just adding that. Like you said, people are spoiled for choice. There are a number of organizations that are offering coach training programs. And then one thinks, oh, should I do this or should I do that? Right. So my suggestion is that just explore and talk to the people, study the model that the coach training program is offering, and make your decision on the basis of what is really singing to you, what is really resonating with you. Because only when the instructor or the coach trainer and the model resonates with you, will you actually, learn anything from that person or from that model? So it's important to make a choice on the basis of heart more than head while choosing a coach training program. That that is what, and that's what I have done, for all my 3-year credentialing uh, journey. So
I think
yeah.
three words definitely stood out: the head, heart, and the alignment with the model and the structure that particular coaching institution is offering. Because else, I think a lot of energy, time, effort, not to miss money, goes into it, and one does not want to lose any of these because all of them are precious. So thanks a lot for that advice. So with that, we come to the end of the conversation, Jayshree. Before we call it at the day, for those who are interested to get in touch with you, what would be the easiest way to reach Jayshree?
Well, easiest way is to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm sure Kiran, you will give them the LinkedIn profile link, and I would be happy to help in the capacity that I'm able to. Um, you could also visit our website. It is www.alchemy.co.in. So that's the leadership consulting firm that we've been
Great.
running for last 18 years.
Fantastic. So I'll share these as well on the screen and in the description section for the benefit of audience. So with that, we come to the end of the conversation. And for the audience, we hope the conversation was supportive to you in some ways. And please feel free to share any queries or questions for us on this conversation. And myself or Jayshree will for sure revert, and that's a promise from us. And also, if you have liked the session, please hit the like. That's how we get to know that you enjoyed the conversation. And do feel free to share this with as many who may benefit. And that's the very objective of creating this conversation. And please do hit the subscribe so you are among the first to get notified whenever there's a next coaching conversation. And with that, we come to the end of this episode. Till we meet again, please be safe and keep smiling. God bless all. And one last thanks to Coach Jayshree once again for making this conversation happen. Thank you very much.